And good evening to you guys doing a podcast on the Euros is it's over, and it seems to be forgotten about, to be honest. Don't know what the Euros are anymore because that's normal. Joined this in the stream recording by Coach Dave and Jack occasionally. Um, Firstly, Dave, how you doing?
Yeah, all good. I think your microphone's a little bit buggy. But yeah, no, I'm doing good. It's what the hottest day of the year so far. Um, the weather's been beautiful. Um, Seems like everyone's been enjoying an impromptu day off work due to the fact that Microsoft was quote unquote down. So yeah, no, can't complain.
And you, Jack, just while I'm double checking something on the mic.
Yeah, mine was more of a half day off, but it was all good. It's all good, and enjoying the weather. Taking it easy. It's been a nice little break away from the football. I think just Euros is over, Premier League ain't started. Just away from the stress for just a little bit.
Okay, fair. Hopefully my microphone is working okay now. Apologies if it isn't. Understandably, would be very annoying. I didn't actually have to work today. Always have a Friday off, so I'm obviously grateful for that. It was a lot of chaos at the airport today, and yeah, my brother flew out, and yeah, I just had to tell him it's minimum like 2-3 hours delay. He was only flying to Dublin as well. There you go. That's what happens in a dodgy update. Funny enough, I'm using a Microsoft operating system, so I'll just blame any audio issues on that. No excuses for Tottenham in their first preseason game, though. Well, second if you count it being official. We had a Cambridge fixture behind closed doors, coming against Hearts now, or some people thought it might have been Brighton, just with the amount of seagulls in the area, or Tapping Topes might have appeared out of nowhere on a night out. But yeah, we had a interesting first half. We started most of the first team. I didn't catch the first half. I've only kind of rewatched the second. Who wants to take the first half?
Yeah, I'll go for it. It was interesting. I think from a lineups perspective, obviously the first thing that stood out to us was the fact that we didn't have any centre backs, which we knew going into it, and I'm sure we'll touch on that. When we look at how the squad's been formulated and how we're kind of preparing from a transfer standpoint. So Gray, Skip started at centre back. Donnelly left back. He usually plays 10 or even sometimes striker. So it's a very interesting approach, but we've seen this from Ange before, haven't we? He's not averse to using different people in different different positions. So it's been one of those kind of experimental types. But the first few games of preseason, you're going to have that. There was a little bit of fluidity in some of the combinations, but then also a lot of rust. Mala Solomon on the left had an absolute shocker, in my opinion. We know he hasn't had a competitive game since the Liverpool game, isn't it? In September, October, something like that. Might have been even later than that. So, we're nearly, it's 9 months or so since he's played football. And it definitely showed. Definitely showed in his performance. And his lack of kind of link up and any sort of continuity with the rest of the team. Porro, yeah, some good bits, and I think we saw the usual patterns, from Spurs, because most of these players, as we know, they've played under Ange now for a year now, so you see the usual patterns. But definitely once we got into the second half, there was the injection of youth, a bit more ingenuity, a bit more invention. It was quite interesting because that first goal, the build-up looked a little bit slow. If you watch it back, it looks a little bit slow, and then all of a sudden, we play with a bit of pace for 10 seconds, and we open up a low block. And it's something we've been crying out for the last 10, 15 games of last season, isn't it? So it was interesting to see, and let's see what happens as they go into the next game. But definitely the tempo got raised in the second half, and hopefully it puts a bit of a firecracker up. Some of them in terms of just thoughts about the fact that there are other players in the squad who, despite their youth, are able to put pressure on some of the more experienced players. And I know some of us want to see some of the younger ones bedded in alongside some of these more experienced players because we need it. We need that injection of youth, we need that injection of pace, ingenuity, creativity, spontaneity, all those things, and they're not just buzzwords. These are the things that you need in any team that's trying to go anywhere. You can't be robotic. You can't be static, which I think was symptomatic of our football in the last 6 months of the season, definitely. So I think the first half kind of took a bit of that shape. I was very, very impressed by Gray in terms of his playing at centre back, and after the game he spoke about he just wants to play. He didn't he wasn't fussed about where he was on the pitch. He was just like, look, just get me on there. I don't mind. He was. I think he was brilliant in parts. His anticipation. He intercepts. In some really crucial moments, breaks the play open, moves the ball very quickly. We know about his. He can shift from kind of one foot to the other very well to kind of evade the press in central areas. We know that. But it was quite interesting to see he's quick to go to the ground as well, but he wins those tackles. His tackling was on point. You don't like to see players commit so early, but if you're going to do that, you got to win the ball. So he wasn't really giving away too much, and it put people at ease, and it gave us an option to start our attacks from a deeper position. It didn't have to be from the kind of sixth position from Basuma or whatever. And at some points because we were playing quite high, because Hearts weren't that great, it meant that Gray actually was picking up the ball in that sixth position, that midfield position, even as a centre back, and then starting off some of those attacks, getting the ball to Madison, getting the ball out wide to our wide options, and then going from there. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops over the next few games. Obviously, we go after Japan next week, after the next fixture, which is tomorrow, Saturday. So, yeah, but definitely, like I said, going to the second half, we had a bit more momentum, and it was great to see.
Yeah, and it was just a little bit of a shout out for, it's funny because we can start attacks slightly higher up with these types of players, and we were kind of forced to because we played all midfielders apart from Porro, and they were essentially starting as or was it spent? Oh no, that's the lineup for the second half. It was just Porro that started as a on paper defender, with the rest of the starting defense being essentially midfielders or attackers, like Jamie Donnelly coming in at left back. Credit to him, who showed a fair bit of ingenuity when he was in build up as well. Basuma started as a 6. I can't really remember much from him. Everything else was a bit rusty, but credit to Madison, who looked a bit sharper as well. Big Brennan getting on the score sheet. Fair play to him. I've got literal stocks in how useful he can be this season, but that'll be debated over the course of the season, no doubt. We'll see a lot of changes coming on for the second half, and Emerson Royale needs to come into defence with Phillips, Spence, came on, and Max Robson played left back. Tyrese Hall played 6 with Bergveld Devine. Mikey Moore came on, played on the right, Werner and Lancashire. Yeah, Jack, what did you think of the second half, just kind of as it played out? Maybe aside from the Emerson Royale incident.
To be honest, I only caught the highlights, but I think there were players that stood out. I think Bergvall did show a sort of assertion in that midfield where he wanted that ball in deep positions and was able to drive that ball forward, play progressive passes from deep areas, and that is the kind of player we've lacked, especially from sort of November onwards last season. So it was good to see someone that has that profile at least. Obviously, whether he does that, at the level we need it to, that's another question. And again, I look at these friendlies as training exercises. They are training and fitness exercises at the end of the day. The level obviously is not going to be of what you would expect in a standard match day. So it's very hard to read what they can do when we want them to. So it was, impressive to see generally as a whole. But again, I didn't watch the game, so I can't fully give a proper lowdown on it. I will say though, Archie Gray did look alright as well. Jed Spence, I think, showed that he has something in him. Whether that's raising his transfer value or not, I don't know. And Lancashire, which Joe Hire shamelessly called him. If you
You've
keep
got a
doing
lot
this,
of
you're
slander.
gonna.
I'm just remembering now that the slander you have for, or how critical, I should say, you come across for some of the young players.
Listen, I've been hurt, man. I've been hurt in the past. Like we ain't got a good history of production in it. We ain't got a good production line, generally speaking. So, I think I'm very well, in my rights to be as measured as possible. So, but yeah, good to see generally, young players sort of getting slowly and bedded into the system and playing handball. That's what you want. You want all the players to be on board, young, old. I feel like a lot of the more senior players that were in that squad don't know how to play that, to be honest. So yeah, let's just see how it goes. Hard to read into, as I always say with friendlies.
Yeah, I mean, opposition caveats and competition caveats aside, I did really enjoy the midfield performance in general. I do think just based off that game alone, if Aemon Targaryen had 2 eyes and played football, he would be Lucas Bergvall. He was generally really keen in build up to get involved. I'd maybe say just only a tad too keen, like if I'm being critical. But you've kind of got to in these kind of friendly games just to get that sharpness up. But I feel like he was taking a lot of responsibility of Tyrese Hall, even though they didn't necessarily need to. But again, like he made stuff happen from deep anyway, and was really good at driving us forward. I thought Devine was great. I thought Tyrese Hall did okay. I thought Spence did great. Mikey Moore looked really comfortable and at ease, even though it's not his favourite side. Werner did okay, and Emerson Royale, maybe we should have accepted that bid for him, but no, in general, I thought it was okay. I was a little bit disappointed with Valise and Scarlett. Both of them looked, I'd say, a little bit clunky, but in general, yeah, got a few cobwebs off and just got to see Spurs score some goals again. Like, Dave, did you have anything you wanted to add to wrap up the second half? Because I know you're pretty big on the youth.
Yeah, yeah. As you guys know, I searched high and low through VPN portals and whatnot to watch Lucas Bergvall playing in the Swedish league over the past 6 months or so, as we were awaiting his arrival from Asgard or Dragonstone, if if you want to carry on the House of the Dragon reference. But no, it was good to see him get the minutes and get a good run out. 45 minutes. I think for me, what you see with that second half team is when you've got 3, 4, 5 players, all of a certain technical ability, who almost think the game the same way, you have that instant fluidity. So you can see, I know they're all kind of young, but the likes of a Bergvall, Moore, Divine, even Spence to a certain extent, some of their link-up play that you saw, they've only trained together for 10 days, some of them. Some of them never before. Maybe Bergvall's hardly even been there for much longer, for a length of time. Some of those patterns weren't necessarily scripted, but they have certain connections that are based just off seeing the game the same way, the right way. You could say, from a football purist, you like to see adventurous play, you like to see creativity. They are going to take risks, so you need to make sure that the structure around them is secure. So that's why I'm very interested to see how it works when the other players come back, the more experienced players. We look at the likes of Romero, obviously Van der Ven, other, Adoji, or whoever, So when you put these players amongst, our first 11, quote unquote, how's it going to work? What runs is Heung-min Son going to be making with a Bergvall and a Madison midfield, or it's attacking link up behind him? Because we saw Lancashire was making some brilliant runs, and Moore was making some good runs, and they're all thinking the game the same way, and that's what you want to see. And that's what came almost nearly natural to them. So it was a very bright performance from them all. Bergvall, for me, is a standout, but they all did well. I don't think Divine did badly. Divine did very well. I think he had some very positive moments. His passing range was very impressive. He was definitely switching the angle of our attack and the point of attack very well for us. And that's what you need against like a low block, being able to go from left to right, and just switching things very easily and quickly. Moore, we know what Moore is about now. He's such a hotly anticipated and highly rated talent. The reports coming out that they're looking to really fast track him into the first team. This is something that's been going on for a number of months, and conversation been going on for a number of months. And kudos to him. If he can do it, he can do it. It's been, I don't remember the last time we had a bona fide super talent at that age coming through. We've had to, this is probably why my good brother Sting is always rolling his eyes when we're talking about another youth product, because usually we mention them in 2024 and then they go on loan for 6 years, and then 2030 we sell them for 2.5 million, and it's just like, okay, that's just another one. But to actually see some of these young cats get the hype and look like they may be sticking around and look like they may break into the first team and maybe do something, let's see what happens. But until then, Sting will be rolling his eyes, and with cause and with justification, because we did just sell Troy Parrott, who was the next Harry Kane. We just sold him for 6.4 or whatever, to some random Dutch team.
Streets are saying Dane Scarlett's next.
I don't want to comment on that. I don't want to comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, again didn't watch the whole game, but all I'm hearing is he wasn't very effective. And again, I look at the profile that he is. It doesn't feel like it would work at Spurs in an Ange system anyway. That's all I'll say on that.
For me, with him, every time I've watched him play, as an individual, I understand him and his game. As a player in an attacking trio, attacking quartet, I don't see it. Like the runs he makes, the connections he has, the link up, it never seems to quite gel. So even like you saw it on Wednesday, whenever the game was, he'll go a bit too far wide, or he'll be at the back post when he should be at the near post, and it's just not quite there in terms of really being honest. And it could be just reps. He's always out on loan, or he's injured. So it could be just he doesn't train enough with certain players or whatever. So I don't know, but it's not looking bright for him. And then you've got Lancashire. He's 19, and they're talking very highly on him. I'm not going to call him Lancashire yet. I don't think he's at that title, but he's a great talent. And last year, destined for the 23, 21, 23s, the PL2 team, he was knacking in goals left, right, and centre, and all types of goals. And they talk about it all the time. Him and Donnelly, they talk about it all the time. They have modelled their game off Harry Kane. So a lot of their runs, a lot of the way they finish, their placement, the way they take their penalties. If you ever watch the under-23s take penalties, all 5, 6, 7 of them that you'll watch, in a penalty shootout, they all take them like Harry Kane. They do the same, shuffle, all that kind of stuff. So it's very evident that kind of, legacy's there, filtering down to some of the younger attackers. I'm not saying he's going to be Harry Kane, but if we get 2-3 seasons of, someone coming through who can give us 15 goals, 15, 20 goals, you're never going to turn that down. Do you know what I mean? But he'll probably end up going out on loan in the next 6 months or so. And we'll see how he develops.
Yeah, there was reports saying that, Lancashire was the best striker kind of in training. And that probably factors in not only like the likes of Dane Scarlett and Veliz, but obviously you've got Son, Werner, people like, I can't see Brennan Johnson being an option for striker mind, but I mean, they would be doing the same type of drills as strikers, right? Charlison's not even. Is he even in training though? That's.
Oh yeah, he's not. He's been in Disney. Yeah, you're right.
I was going to reel him off as the first on the list, but then I've realised like he's just still not in training, for whatever reason. Obviously, reports linking him to Saudi quite a lot at the moment. So, I mean, I'll believe it when I see it, and I just hope things work out for the best, the way they're meant to, and that's all I'll say. Which is a slightly good segue kind of into the transfers. Dave, you had like a semi-viral football Twitter tweet off the NSO account just to say, we had a plan to have more signings by now. We don't have these signings and we're going on tour to Japan soon. This is a failure by the board. That's to obviously paraphrase it. What are your thoughts on that at the moment?
Yeah, listen, my whole point, if any of the people that responded to that tweet are listening to this pod, my whole point was that time is everything when it comes to football. And 2 weeks is a long time in football. 3 weeks is a long time in football. On July 1st, I was feeling a particular way, and you guys know that in the group chat, I was telling everyone to calm down. I was telling Jack to put the machete away. I was telling Yao to put the bazooka away. I was telling Chope to put the Adderall away. Do you know what I mean? Everyone calm down. Just take a chill pill. It's July 1st, July 2nd, July 3rd. It's now, July 19th? And now I'm telling everyone to open up every cabinet, every chamber, and let's go on a raid. Because at this point, especially knowing what the manager said, especially knowing our financial position, and knowing that it is possible to get things done in the shadows when there's international tournaments going on, all that rubbish, why are we not doing anything? If if there was a moratorium on transfers, if no one was making any signings, if none of our competitors were doing anything, cool. But the moment United went to the Dutch team and said, yo, can we just have a quick 10 minutes with that guy after training? And and as soon as they went out, the next day they did the paperwork, did a medical, then he flew off on holiday, right? The moment they did that, it changed what the last 2 weeks could have been. So my thing is this. Okay, cool. You didn't do nothing up until last Sunday. Fine. Both competitions ended. One of your main targets, apparently, is in that competition. And he's in the same situation. He's got hardly any minutes. He's not a key player, right? He's not going to be he'll be massively distracted, but he's not a key player. You know what the fee is. The fee is out there. There's actually no mystery here. The whole world knows how much Eze costs. So what are you going to do about it? Because my thing, and this is what I said to some of the people that responded, I said, even if we put in a bid of 45 mil, I wouldn't have tweeted what I tweeted. Because I would have said, you know what? There's an intent. There's something moving in the direction. Now, by the time this podcast comes out tomorrow, I could be completely outdated. And we could have a Ornstein, bang, this has happened, yada, yada, yada. You know, Daniel Levy submitted 55 million plus 20 million in add-ons for Eberechi Eze, Crystal Palace sit down over the weekend and he gets signed before we go to Japan. Great. But I'm looking at that Japan trip. And I remember this happened last year when we went to wherever it rains all the time in the summer, because obviously that's what we do. We go to places where they have rain through the summer. The games get rained
monsoon, wasn't it Thailand?
Yeah, we went to the middle of the monsoon season to play football. Great. Well done, Spurs. To make all the money that we're not spending this year. Yeah? Anyway, so we go off to Japan, and what we did last year, we went to Thailand or wherever, Indonesia, Bali, wherever we went, yeah? We went there, and I don't think we signed anyone. Because Daniel Levy also he doesn't have roaming on his mobile phone. So when he's over there, he's on holiday mode. Right? He doesn't take no phone calls from an 0208 number or anything like that. He doesn't take any +44 number phone calls. He doesn't take any calls from anyone from England. So there's no negotiating. We don't see any deals get done when we're on tour. So in my head, I'm like, if we don't sign anyone by we leave for Japan, right? And let's work this out. The game's on the 27th. The first game's on the 27th. So we're leaving probably on the 23rd, let's say. Right? They want to acclimatize to the time difference. So if we're leaving by the 23rd, we've got 4 days now to get it done. Or get something in the works. If we don't do nothing whilst we're out there, we're back, say, the next week, that's another 2 weeks. So you tell me the whole month has gone by and we're still playing Archie Gray and Oliver Skip at centre-back. We're still relying on Yves Saint Laurent at 6, even though we saw how he stunk up the joint for 2/3 of last season. We're still relying on Timo Werner and you know, Chris Bound Lighty on right wing. Come on, guys! Like let's do this. Let's do something different, right? I'm in agreement with my brother Toppe. I know I tell him to relax sometimes, but yes, the attack stinks, and there are players out there that we could be buying to improve it. If it's not Eze, it's go get someone else. Like do something, and I think that's what I'm looking for. Now that we're 3 weeks in, right? Preseason started. They're training. They're learning the system, right? Because we need traction. This season for us is not like the season for Arsenal or, you know, Man City or Liverpool. Everyone's at different stages in their development as a club. You know, our goals are different, not just in terms of what we're trying to win, but in terms of what we need to do to progress to the next level. Right? We need a certain number of players and a certain quality of players. They may need someone to take them an extra 5% up. We may need to jump 30, 40%. So we need to get those type of players in early. You can't take the risk of saying, oh, we'll fix it in the last 2 weeks of the transfer window. trying to get cheap deals, especially when you lot have the cheek to be announcing hotels, tours, NFL deals, right? All this left, right, and center, and telling us that we're in the strongest position for FFP and PSR and PIL and whatever abbreviations you want to talk about. It's just, it doesn't match up. So because of all of that, I'm like, dude, just some sort of intent. I'm not saying you got to sign someone by yesterday. It would have been nice, but at least I want to, I want to hear something, because it just makes us feel like we're moving in a direction. Now, I could be all wrong. In the next week, 2 players, 1 player. You never know, right? They did it with Basuma. They pulled it out of nowhere. Madison was completed in a number of days, I think. Van der Ven was pretty cool, even though he was on the radar. They can do it. And maybe there's a bit of a blanket silence to protect a deal like an Eze deal. So I hope all this energy is being expended for no reason. But if we come back from Japan and there's no players, then I will return to that tweet. And I'll return to most of the people who responded to me. And I'll be asking them questions. How do you feel now?
Yeah, I mean, Ant does talk quite a lot about, players getting used to his way of playing, getting used to the system and the structure. And I'm quite conflicted as well, because I'm someone who I don't miss seeing rumors and leaks, up it in like little quotation marks, every other day from these claimed tier 1, tier 2 sources, and there's loads of bleeders in the club that are leaking little bits of information, and quite a lot of it used to be quite true as well. Like Fabrizio Romano used to just know everything that was going on, probably through Paratici, and then nothing against like the guy either, but like people like Paul O'Keefe as well. Like, yeah, it seems like a sound bloke, but I just hated like all of the leaks which were coming through. But at the same time, I think like everyone, just the lack of noise in general throughout the whole thing. When we were told in May, I believe that was like, oh, Ange was very confident and happy with the plan going forward, whereas I'm not really seeing any evidence of a plan, and it seems like top targets are falling away day by day by day by day. So at the same time, I don't see Eze happening either. I think it would just take us, unless we actually got a big fee for Richarlison. That's the only way I can see us going crazy. Who else was it that went? So it's Desiree Douay. We waited for far too long on any kind of Nico Williams deal. Top targets. There's like floundering around for Neto, who we're not even sure has any kind of knee tissue left. Bless him though, it's obviously quite harsh. Yeah, there's like people debating wingers in the group chat as we speak. Funny enough, the dropouts for tonight's pod are the ones debating the left wingers. So that's neither here or there. But Jack, what are your thoughts on it at the moment?
Yeah, I'm with Dave on this. And firstly, to all the people getting a little bit personal on the comments over that kind of tweet, yeah, suck your mum, yeah. Because listen, all I'll say is this, yeah. What Dave said about 30, top teams need to gain about 5 to 10% in order to, potentially achieve what they want to achieve, right? And we, like Dave said again, we need to go about 30, 40% because we're so far behind those lot. So obviously the level of what the body of work that's required is going to be significantly more than that of the top teams. So I'm looking at United. They have a big body of work required. They've got a lot that they need to do to get back in at least the top 4. And they're showing that intent, at least, whether you agree with the manager staying or not, or whatever. There's loads of debates about why Ten Hag is staying and whether he even lasts or not. And they're looking for the right manager. Who knows? Anyway, besides the point, they're actually showing that level of intent. Why aren't we doing that? or even coming close to that. And again, if they do shut us up with the David Ornstein or Fabrizio Romano bomber, fair enough. But again, recent history suggests we aren't that club to do that often. We'll do that once in a while. Did it with Basuma, but it is not. You have to look at history, recent history. You've got to look at the actions of the past. You can't base it on hope. You can't base it on something that some mythical sort of amount of transfers that we have never done before. You just have historically we are not good at getting rolling in deals back to back to back in a short
The
space of time.
rebellions are built on hope.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
I'm sorry. That would be the last reference from me.
But yeah, I mean, you can hope all you want. You've got to use rationale. You've got to use logic in this, and we don't have that history of churning out deals right, left, and centre and showing a good amount of intent. Definitely not in the last, I don't know how many years.
I'd say
I
we did
probably
last summer, to be fair.
Which one?
Last summer, with terms of what we needed from the squad, what targets we needed for what position, and we seemed to execute them quite quickly, apart from centre back, which seemed to just drag out a little bit too long between kind of Tapsoba and Van der Ven. And that was kind of done like after most of pre-season, I think all of pre-season actually. Like Van der Ven had only joined a few days before the Brentford game, which was the opener of last season. So other than that, I'd say last summer was pretty proactive.
I'm not. I don't agree. I think only Van der Ven and who else was it? Just back my memory. And Madison. They were the only targets that we felt would improve the team. That did
Vicario.
improve the team. Yeah, Vicario. Yeah.
And then
Those
we
were
already had Udogi.
3 weeks. We already had a doggy. So I didn't. There were, Brennan Johnson. I think a lot of us massively questioned that. So there were a lot of signings that we did that we still missed out on. And the more you miss out on, the bigger the body of work required the next summer and the next summer and the next summer, and that's what we always keep on doing. It's an endless cycle. It's just and then every summer we need a massive rebuild. We need a massive rebuild. It's every 2 summers at the very least. It's gonna continue to happen. So, whatever the comments are saying, wait till the end of the window, blah blah blah. All right, wait till. Go on, let's wait then. Let's wait, and then I'm
You want
gonna
Tony,
actually
don't
respond
you?
to that guy. Listen, I
Ivan
want
Tony?
Ivan Tony, man. I want Ivan
Okay.
Tony, all round striker. But again, just getting Tony and just getting Eze, I don't think we'll get both of them. But if just getting those two, it's not enough. You still need to you cover that front three. You still need someone that can deputize or challenge Madison's position. You still need that number 6 and right back as well. Like someone that can challenge Porro, because I don't think that's enough as well.
I think Archie Gray's covering 2 positions this year. I
Let's
think
see.
he's going to play. Do you know what? I hoped from the Hearts game, obviously seeing Bergvall play so close to Hall at times, that maybe that's an adaptation of a double pivot, or I wasn't sure if it was that or if Bergvall was just obviously very keen to impress, or both. But I hope it's the double pivot thing, and then at least we'll have that more protection. I think we've got decent depth at 6 with Basuma, Bentancur, and Gray, and obviously Papsar coming in there. If it's a double pivot, then obviously Papsar will come in there. Then Bergvall will try and supplement that role. I think he'll be fine as well in European games. But yeah, it's obviously not just about on the face of things like a lack of quality, which is evidently there up top, but obviously the size of the squad and the homegrown nature of it as well, considering we're going to be playing a lot more. Like we gassed out at the end of last season. We weren't even far in cup competitions or Europe. So that was quite worrying. And now we're looking to go further in these cup competitions and looking to be one of the favourites for the Europa League. It's spooky for depth, although I do still have a good feeling about the youth players being able to supplement that lack of depth. It may be in a similar way to how some of the youth players helped Liverpool last year. Although I wouldn't want to rely on them to the extent Liverpool had to last year either, because that's not really that fair. But I think would be very unlucky to be in the same kind of circumstantial position they were in last year. But do you know, I would just be happy or at least content if I saw some more kind of proactivity when it came to the outgoings as well. Like there doesn't seem to be anyone remotely interested in Regulon.
The problem is outgoings don't improve the team. That's the problem.
They do when we're using that money to actually buy players, which it seems like is the case weirdly. Or we're just trying to I feel like we do have a decent amount to spend still, but we're trying to keep our cards close to our chest in that regard.
We've got the money.
Yeah.
I think it's widely known that we have the money. Even if it's not a figure, everyone knows that we're in a healthy position because it's been reported by reputable sources, whether it be Telegraph or whatever, that from an FFP standpoint, we're in the best position in the league, or one of the best positions in the league. I think it was either last season or the season, I think it was last season where it came out that we've got that financial leeway of up to about 200 odd mil.
I think it's double that, to be honest.
Listen, whatever. So people know we've got that, but Levy's going to turn around and say, yeah, but the reason why we got there is because of what I've been doing, which is sell to buy. And I think what Spurs fans who are really pushing to see us do something want to see is just one summer where we just loosen up just a little bit in the right areas with the right players, and actually it's the players that we're being linked with. We're all happy with most of them, I think. You see a link to Eze, no one's turning around and going, no, I don't want that player. Do you know what I mean? For the most part, most of the people, apart from Gallagher, that's the one where everyone's like, please, if you spend that money on Gallagher, we will riot. Okay.
Jacob Ramsey too.
Yeah, it looks like Ramsey splitting the camp.
Beautiful segue.
Yeah, but the Eze deal, if that's your marquee signing, no one's going to bat an eyelid if we go and give 75 mil up front to get him. Which, okay, fine, we did it. Great. Because we know we need that level of talent in the team. It's probably overpaid, 75, because his release clause is where it's at. But I'm using that as an example in terms of us flexing the financial, freedom that we have because we're in a better position than 18, 17 other teams in the league. But we're not doing that. We're still haggling. We're still going, oh, we need that person to be out with a 2 to 3 million wiggle room before we can even sit down at a table. That's what it appears to be. And that's the frustrating thing.
I agree with the just one summer, because one summer is all it takes for you to reduce your body of work that's required for the following transfer windows. That's all it takes. You can just, you don't have Spurs fans complaining if you actually have a good, like Arsenal fans. Yeah, I get they're probably a bit itchy because they want to, get that striker sorted. They want to get a couple other players and get some depth in to finally topple City, but they're not going to be itching as much as us for it. Then they don't have anywhere near as much as other clubs have or need to do to fulfill their objective. Man City fans are not going to be itching as well. They're obviously as the league title winners, they're going to be thinking, yeah, we're a bit concerned, but we're kind of content where we are. We need just one transfer, like Dave said, one transfer window is all it could take. Provided everything is profiled correctly. But the other topic is Lange. The other thing is, is his what is his role in this? is his talent ID up to scratch? And his talent ID, we discussed it, sort of all the way through last season. His talent ID was massively questioned by us. If we have another guy who's, identifying players that aren't up to scratch as well, similarly to Ange, then what are we doing? It's just going to make things just a bit tetchy for us.
So we're not fans of Jacob Ramsey.
I don't really know. I've not really watched the match. I've watched a few games where I've seen him go, oh, this player looks really good. But do I feel like it takes us to the next level? Not really. But do I prefer him on our bench than Lo Celso? Probably yes. In terms of for the Premier League, because I feel like he's a better Premier League player, and there's 38 games in the Premier League. Lo Celso is a player that thrives in the slower game, so he thrives in Europe. He thrives in international football, and I feel like he'll be the same when he gets to Villa or wherever he ends up. I don't think he's a 38 game. Well, I mean, no, he doesn't play 38 games anyway. One little tight hamstring, and that's it. He's out for 2-3 months. But I just don't think he's suited for the rough and tumble of the Premier League and the pace of the Premier League. But when you get into the, Europa, like all his best games for Spurs, for me, obviously he had a few standout moments, whatever, under Ange or whatever, a couple goals here and there, like the Man City goal, I think it was. I think he scored against Villa, was it? He scored that cracker against Villa last season. But, if you think about, I think under Mourinho, or Conte, he had a really good game or whatever it was, all in Europe, Again, the opposition was limited, but those slower paced games, a bit more open, a bit more space for him to get on the ball, that's where he thrives. But you play 38 Premier League games. You're always going to play more domestic games than European. So you can't have a player who's suited for the European leagues and not domestic. So if Ramsey's a better fit for our match day squad, for our Premier League squad, then okay, cool. But I don't actually really know where he's at on a level. I've not really watched enough of him. Like I said, I've seen a few games where I thought he was a good player, but I don't think he takes us to the next level. And my thing that's always been is we need players who take us to the next level, who they walk in the door, the videos you see when they go into Hotspur away and they did a little fist bump, hi, you right, Rebecca? Hi, you right, Rachel? You right, Madders? All that stuff, yeah? Players that walk in, that the rest of the squad go, oh, man, I've got to be on my A game today. Because they know if you have 2-3 bad training sessions, you're not playing Saturday. Does Jacob Ramsey give you that vibe?
Yeah,
does he make Sarr feel like, if I have a bad training week, this kid's gonna take my spot?
And I'm fully with that as well, because again, I've always advocated, what is the point in signing squad players? You're just gonna bloat the actual squad in itself. If you sign first team players, your former first team players will be demoted to more rotational and squad players, and also they'll have to raise their game.
Yeah, and then your squad becomes a squad of first team players.
Yeah,
like exactly. Arsenal, like Man City, like Liverpool.
Players that can actually gel and fit in, and slot straight into the team when needed.
Yeah.
The problem with the Ramsey thing is he's only started 8 league games last season. He's had some injury issues and he missed most of it. So if we're going to get rid of Lo Celso, cool. I think we're all for that. But if you're going to bring in someone who is just as, I don't know, I can't say he's injury prone because previous seasons he's played a lot more games. But if he does end up becoming more injury prone or just as injury prone as Lo Celso, then again we've just wasted everyone's time. It's just another example of Tottenham Hotspur wasting the fans' time, the players' time, the manager's time. This guy is not going to move the needle, and again, it doesn't inspire any of the squad either. So it just feels like it's just for homegrown purposes, I think. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I just don't know what we're doing.
I'm fully with you. Like squad building for me, and this is all I've been saying this for 10 years. Long before I joined, this marvelous podcast. That it's been about our ability to build a squad. We've had bench players. No one builds a top team, a challenging team who win trophies is not based off a first 11. Your 1 to 11 who can compete. It's about having players at number 14, 15, 16, even 18 and 19 who are not in the match day squad, or whatever, who can do the business, right? Who are first team level. And everyone's like, oh, but they get upset. They go, no, 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 no. Listen, they're there and they know they're there to compete. And if they do well enough, you give them a chance. They get their 5 games, they get 6 games. And if they fall off, Jack Grealish, then Doku comes in. Doku falls off, Alvarez gets out there, or Foden goes out there, and Alvarez goes in 10 position. Or what do you know what I mean? Like, this is what top teams do, right? Whether they're spending 50, 60 million pound per player or 25, 20 pounds, 20 million pounds on a player. Do you know what I mean? Like, it can be done. And I think we have always lacked that. And my turning point in that kind of thinking, whether I don't know how long ago it was now, but when we had that semi-final against Chelsea and we were 2-1 up or whatever, or maybe it's 2-2, and we turned to their bench and they brought on Hazard and Matic, and we brought on like Nkudu or something like that. Come on, like
Yeah.
I think it was a semi-final, I think, and we lost 4-2. And I think Hazard and Matic changed, I think Matic scored.
Yeah, they still both scored, yeah.
And, to have those options on your bench because you're rotating, because it's March or April, whenever it was, because you're at that point in the season, you've rotated and you're in the game, you're in the semi-final, you're still competing because you're not out of it. And you tell us, right, there you go, win me the game. And we're looking, we've had to play our best team because we don't have any other options. And then when we're struggling, we turn around and we're bringing on players that we don't even know what even happened to them. So we've never done that. It goes back to the whole Kane argument about Kane and buying a backup striker. No, you don't buy a backup striker. You buy another striker. You buy a striker to compete with Kane, and you put a rocket up his ass. Do you know what I mean? And say, look, it's you versus you. That's how you do it. That's how the best teams do it. So if you're injured or if you're out of form, we've got someone who can come and do the business. And we didn't do that, and that's where we suffered for it. So if they're serious, they'll be building a squad like that. And I think, maybe some of our midfield options, if you look at a Bergvall and some of these kids, hopefully they turn into that over the years, behind a Maddison, and like a Sarr, even like Bentancur, if Bentancur returns to any sort of top form, but it's going to take a lot of work, and like our good brother said, this one summer could be the summer that does it, as long as we just put the work in. But we're now at July 19th, and we've only got Archie Gray.
Yeah,
it's
one of those where, the group chat's even making a pretty good point while we record this, and it's probably makes more sense to trust someone like Jamie Donnelly rather than bringing someone in who's probably just going to keep the floor where it is as well. I think we're pretty stacked in 8 as well, to be honest. You'd ideally want someone that can come in and fill Maddison's boots, because we know he's not going to be able to play every game. You probably won't even be able to play most of the games, to be fair. Like, his physicality and injury record isn't the best. So we need someone of quality to come in, play in his position and deputise for him and try and replicate the quality he can bring. So someone like Eze would be obviously perfect, but again, don't see it happening. Jacob Ramsey. I almost said Jacob Murphy. Wow.
He's our next target.
I think he's very good, but I'm just not sure about his reliability, or I'm not entirely sure. Like, I think he's got the ability to become like a Champions League level player, but I'm just not sure. I'm not as convinced as our sporting director seems to be. So I'm just seeing what some of our midfielders are churning out in pre-season already. I'm just like that's probably got to be a more worthy route, and you've got the quality and means more and homegrown already and club trained, so you know. But we'll see kind of what plays out there. I just want to sign off, which I didn't want to end the pod on like a negative note, but there's obviously been quite a bit of a ruckus that's kind of come out of Argentina, and so we kind of saw what happened when he was streaming on the bus, and we're not sure. Well, I couldn't tell if Lo Celso or Romero were directly involved in the song on the bus, although you can probably hazard the best guess as to the whole bus were joining in. And then you've got the fallout of it, and Rodrigo de Paul's like sounding off tweets like, "Okay, yes, I'm sorry." Like it's unfortunate, like those who have been affected by racism are kind of affected by this, but like the Enzo's teammates shouldn't be unfollowing him or calling him out in public. They should be calling him and trying to sort it out over a phone call or in person, which is insane considering, you know, what the song was and how public that was in the first place. And it's just disappointing that that Romero ended up getting involved in that. But yeah, what were your guys' kind of thoughts on that kind of fallout?
I mean, who was it that's made those comments about you should deal with it privately or whatnot?
Rodrigo de Paul
Rodrigo de Paul. Okay.
and then Romero retweeted it. They've both deleted their posts since. So I don't
It's
know.
just
They're
the
not even standing on their own business. So it's a bit, yeah, it's just a bit crazy.
It's just the entitlement of, people telling other people how to react when they have no right to. It's again, this is a nation that just hired one of the most sort of right-wing racist leaders that you could think of around the world in world politics right now. It's a nation that historically eradicated a native population, historically eradicated an transatlantic slave population as well, or brought them in and then eradicated them. So there is gonna, this is history that's been mindsets that could potentially be passed down on people of that nation. So yeah, there's a lot of unraveling to do with the country of Argentina. To be honest, it's a complete mess in my opinion. The way a lot of people think in that part of the world. So I'm going to assume the worst, unfortunately, and say there was probably almost a full involvement of the singing in that bus. And yeah, I mean, is it surprising? Probably not. It's just another incident that's just, yeah, I don't even know what to say really.
Yeah, it's an annoying thing where I think Argentina in particular, out of the South American countries, have kind of these deep-rooted ideas and fascism as well, and a lot of that ideology of fascism comes with obviously a racial bias because you just believe that your country is the best and blah blah blah. So they're just not self-aware enough to really realize what they're doing, and when it's kind of shown in their faces and they're called up publicly, then yeah, they're getting their backs up and being defensive about it because they just don't understand it. They're not raised in that, and it's an unfortunate circumstance, and it'll take a great amount of time to kind of educate that kind of ideology otherwise. But yeah, Dave, was there anything you wanted to
Yeah,
sign that off on?
listen, I was always taught when someone shows you what they are, believe them.
Yeah.
When someone shows you what they are, believe them. And Spurs fans were turning to Sherlock Holmes, dissecting every angle of the digital footage to see if they could see a reflection of Romero at any point in Enzo's live, whatever. Was he there? Was he sitting on the back row? Was he, listen, if he's on the bus, we've all, if anyone's played sport, a bus that loud, that celebratory, you're probably involved. Okay, 1 to 11.
Why I don't even know why they felt the need to speak about France and Mbappe. That's
I don't know.
a weird thing to me as well.
Yeah, it is what it is. But they're singing this song, whether he's singing it or not. Like I said in the group, his silence was an indictment because this was his opportunity. Having seen what happened with Bentancur the other day, to be like, we got it wrong. Like, he could have put out a statement and say, look, I've spoken to Enzo. We got it wrong. And leave it at that. But the whole retweeting and again, it's slimy. It's trying to avoid responsibility, and it's not something we associate with Romero. By all accounts, reports from the dressing room, especially last season, is that he's a stand-up guy. He takes responsibility. He's a captain's captain, that type of player. In the sense that he's part of that leadership group, and he's very vocal, and you see it on the pitch, and we hear about him off the pitch. So to see this kind of like, I'm just gonna act in the shadows, retweet, not really saying nothing of myself, but blah blah blah. It was just a bit. It's disappointing. But like I said, when someone shows you what they are, believe them. So then, now what do you do moving forward? Because you've got black players on your team. You've got French-speaking players on your team. Players, like Sarr, even though he doesn't represent France, he obviously grew up playing football in France.
Yeah.
Basuma. What do you do from there? That's going to be the question that he has to answer. Let's see what
there's going to definitely have to be some kind of meeting amongst the group, and then I don't even know when Romero's even due back, because obviously he's probably entitled to like a 2-3 week holiday now. He probably won't return to the squad until right before the curtain raise of the Premier League. But yeah, obviously something will have to be done there, and that point on responsibility is quite potent as well, because everyone's like Enzo. We don't know who started the chant, but we just know like Enzo was the one obviously streaming it, but everyone on the bus is singing it. But Enzo's getting most of the criticism for it, where really and truly everyone on that bus has to be held responsible for that. So I just hope that kind of accountability, if and when it happens, is more widespread than just Enzo, even though he needs to hold it himself. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to Coach Dave. Thank you, Sting, aka Blacklisted Jack, for joining me on this one. That'll be the end of this recording until next week. Obviously, the streams are most Friday evenings, if not on the Thursday. Audio is out on the Saturday. Socials: TikTok, Instagram, X at New Spurs Order. And for now, peace up.